And when you speak about the human rights issues, I mean, you know, it's pretty obvious that people, I would imagine, are relatively upset about his support for the Karzai government, when you can make the case that, you know, it's very questionable whether he, you know, justifiably should even be in the position that he's in, and also the high level of corruption that exists in Afghanistan. And so, you know, he moves on in that without sort of dealing with those issues, which, you know, truth be told, can he really deal with them if they're sovereign nations? So, I mean, these are, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, let me jump in also on kind of what the goals are here in Afghanistan, and what this president has inherited. This president inherited wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, which were fought with the theory that you could somehow go in, win, i.e. create some sort of stability without having massive American forces or international forces, and get out. And we are paying the price for that now. It was unsupportable then, and it's made worse now. And those of us watching 8 years ago in Afghanistan, a few years ago, when we look at it and we said, there is no way you can go in as light into Iraq as you're going into. There is no way you can go into Afghanistan that light. That's what the president was arguing too. Yeah. Because in order to leave, you have to leave it more stable.
Yeah, but there's not the political will to go heavier.
But there was, well, he may get his 40,000 troops. I mean, there is some political will to do that.
But I would make the case that he may, but then there are arguments that that's not enough. And if you're looking at this border region between Afghanistan and Pakistan that you're trying to secure, I mean, my goodness, you know,
I think that's right, but I think he may, I mean, the president has shown himself to be a little uncomfortable in this environment, because he was the one who came into Afghanistan saying, we've got to win this thing, and we've got to really put people in. And then, but what he got back from McChrystal, General McChrystal, was this horrifying truism, which was, we have not been in Afghanistan for 8 years. We have been in Afghanistan for 1 year, 8 times. And that is what he's recovering from. And that, I mean, we have ourselves to blame for that. It is an ugly reality. And his choices now are not good and bad. They are bad and worse, or worse and horrible.
Do you really believe, I mean,
and has everything to do with Pakistan too.
No, it does. But let me say this. I tend to look at politics, you know, obviously as many of us do, from a cynical perspective at times. And I have to really question whether he really believed those words about, you know, we can win. I mean, he seems like he's a very intelligent person. And to me, it appears on some levels that in order to win the presidency, to deal with the political realities of running for president, that he had to use some of that language so that he would not appear to be too soft on quote unquote terrorism, et cetera. Because, you know, sensibly understanding this idea that we can win, I don't know that we can.
Okay, the hypocrisy is always there in politics, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't test, measure, and grade, ultimately, our leaders against what they say.
I'm talking about this winning notion in Afghanistan.
I think there is a way
he's the one rhetorically who made that the primary issue in foreign policy, in his foreign policy, and that means he's responsible for what happens.
But I think he can do it. But I think he has to. But I think he has to do it in a very different light, and I think he has to do it in the history of the countries which exist within the region. He has to go back to India. He has to go back to Pakistan. He's got to bring those two groups on board, because those are the countries which have the interest in the region, including the Soviets. We don't even know how many covert operations the Soviets are carrying out against American
former
troops.
Soviets,
Or the Russians are carrying out in the
Berlin Wall
area.
just fell. Let's celebrate that, right?
I'm still back in 1987.
The anniversary
was
upon us
But
exactly
without question, the Soviets are probably, the Russians, I'm still back, are carrying out covert operations. The question is, for him, is how do you bring these other areas in Central Asia on board such that if you're going to carry out your program, you can do so successfully without them making the tripwire where you are caught and you can't get out. And that's just, we need, if he's going to have a large number of troops in, what's the exit strategy for getting out?
But here's the deal. The exit strategy is that we build economic systems, we build political systems. I mean, Afghanistan is one of the poorest countries in the world.
Without question.
And so
we got to get used to that, because those are our security threats of our time.
Yeah, they are. They are. And that reality is not, let's send troops in and then we'll be out in 2 years.
Sending troops in is a part of that.
It might be a matter of
but it's a long term.
It might be a matter of figuring out if we've learned the right lessons in Iraq to be able to handle a second go-around in Afghanistan. our troops, our entire strategic and tactical, again, military at least, strategical and tactical initiatives, like the Rumsfeld Doctrine. I mean, that's what utterly failed in Iraq, and that was an embarrassing failure, which had led to so many unnecessary deaths as well as loss of time and money. And it seems as if now the new strategy, which is to take responsibility for what we break, as Colin Powell put it correctly to President Bush, is it might be the correct way to go, and it might be that our entire military as well as civil operation there might be able to handle some kind of social building and nation building. But that remains to be seen, well, and that has to be defined. I mean, because we're not going to find a secular democracy in Afghanistan at the end of 4 years. No. That's simply never going to happen.
It's also important to remember that Afghanistan is not Vietnam, and always the head of Vietnam shows up somewhere in all of these formulas. Afghanistan is Afghanistan, Vietnam is Vietnam, Korea was Korea. So the strategies that were used in terms of counterinsurgencies that took place, or the counterinsurgency which took place in Vietnam, that's not applicable to Afghanistan.
Yeah, politically, it's always in the fear of the American people, isn't it?
It's always there.
So, you know, here's the reality. I mean, we've got so much more to talk about, and yet we don't have time. And I want to have a few final thoughts on how we think he's doing overall. What is the grade that you would give him? On the professors, we give Obama a grade, and you know, it's temporary grade. I mean, it's not the final grade. But what would you guys give him in terms of a grade on how he's doing so far on these issues? Cranston? I
think given all that he's inherited, all that he has to work with, all that just showed up one Tuesday morning when he took the presidency, I would give him an 8.
Out of 10?
Out of 10, I would give him an 8.
Cool.
Letter grade? What's your percentage on that?
I would give him still 80% because he's
inherited. That's a B in City College.
I give him a B. He had, okay, well, I give him a B. I give him a B considering all that he's had to deal with, all that he's inherited, and within a quick period of time it's supposed to solve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I probably would agree with that as well.
Yeah, I went from a B+ to a B, but I think
today on the show.
No.
Oh, okay.
Just to say after our conversation.
I thought we did. Oh, okay.
No, but because I think he is at this moment where he's going to have to act and make some real decisions, as is his team, and so I think that grade's going to change really quickly as well. But he hasn't made. He hasn't put his strategic context out there. I think he's done well in trying to build alliances. I think he has. I think he's kind of sat back, though, and he's watching to see. So I would say I've gone in recent weeks from a B+ to a B. Okay. But I think that in the next couple of months, he will either do this well and he'll be back at an A- or B+, or he won't. He's going to be at a C+.
Max.
Well, I'll just say that executive authority gives a tremendous amount of responsibility and leeway to the President of the United States. Our Constitution requires the President to be clear and responsible and direct with regard to foreign policy. I think the inheritance, by the way, that's really is limiting him right now is the economic problems, which were largely created by Reagan and then certainly exacerbated by Bush, Clinton, and then certainly by Bush too. And that's what's, I think, hamstringing him. Grade D+, though. Ultimately, that he has to be measured ultimately by what he says and what he does. And I'm not seeing nearly enough proactive and responsible and consistent policy in whatever direction, okay, in any direction. It doesn't make a difference, and we can debate the direction, okay? But in terms of an actual policy, he's had time to come up with at least something of a general idea as to how he's going to run foreign policy, and I don't see that yet.
Max, you're tough. I'd be afraid to be in your class.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
My students love me.
Not there.
I would probably go with the B crowd as well. It's extremely challenging what we're dealing with, and there are no easy answers. So.
Are we grading on a curve, though? This is a good president. He deserves. He can live up to a higher standard. That's how I see it.
We're still early in the game, at only less than a year of his presidency, but so far, any tangible gains are yet to be seen. World leaders are also watching Obama for signs of toughness and on his ability to get things done at home. So while the healthcare debate may seem to be strictly a domestic issue, for example, it also serves as a gauge for foreign leaders on Obama's effectiveness. For the professors, I'm Ted Williams. keep learning, and be wise.